All right, everybody, this is the last pamphlet structure that we're going to do. And we're going to do the chain stitch, decorative stitch to bind this pamphlet. So what we've got to do first is create a punching jig. And what you want to do is, so we've got this strip that we had prepped before that's the same height as the text block. And what we've got to do is divide this strip into little 1/2-inch increments. So you can just lay it on your cutting mat, or you can use your ruler and just measure out 1/2-inch increments and make little tick marks at the edges. So I'm just going to go down the strip and just at every 1/2 inch make a little tick mark. And you could do a different pattern for this sewing if you wanted to. But for this first one and for the demonstration, I'm going to do it at 1/2-inch increments. And I think, especially if you had a taller book, you could do kind of interesting things where you could maybe do 1 inch and then a 1/2 inch, 1 inch and a 1/2 inch, and make little patterns of different distances if you wanted to. All right, so then you're going to snip, just like we did before, you're going to snip those little V's in, and you can do it with scissors or with an X-Acto. And just at every mark, you're going to make a little V. And sometimes when I'm using a punching trough where I can look down in this, I don't even bother making the little V's. But because we're doing this on a flat surface, I kind of want to make sure I can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to snip. I'm doing each direction separately. I went up the strip and now I'm going down it in the other direction, just making these little 45s. It's the only thing with scissors is sometimes you miss. Don't make a complete cut. Okay. There we go. All right, so that's the 1/2 inch. You can see it against the white there. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to just put this in and punch through, but we're going to punch through the cover as well. So we're going to do a gatefold cover like we've done before. So you're going to bring the short edges together and just fold this long strip in half. And then you're going to need your awl to punch. And you're going to need your needle and thread. But we'll wait till hold on a second before we get there. So you're going to put, this is your last section. You should have one section left that you prepped. And you're going to just place it in the center of the cover and then open up to the middle of the section, just like normal. And then we're going to place this little jig inside. And I just like to take a second and make sure that just with the tip of my finger, I'm feeling to make sure it's not poking up higher than the height. And then I'm also making sure that everything's pushed into the fold. Just make sure that's all in there before I start punching. And then just at every V, every little divot that you cut, you're going to punch at that spot. So you got to punch through the section and into the cover. You just want to try to get through at a 45-degree angle into the section. Okay. Just going to double check that I made sure I punched at every section. Yeah. And then I can take that out, take the jig away, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go ahead and open up the holes because I just want to make sure I got through at every point. And now's the time to do this to make sure, because if not, you could still, because it's still being held, I've got it held in place. If I need to correct it, I can. And I'm just making sure I can get through the hole. As you can see, I barely pierced, but that's enough just to break through a little bit. Okay, oh, this one I got a little off the spine, but it's okay. Just gonna go ahead with it. Okay, so now set this down for just a second, close it. And then I've got to measure out my thread. It'd probably be smart to go ahead and do that before. And what you need for this is I like to do 3 times the height because you want to make sure, because you're going to be looping and doubling up your sewing like a little chain stitch. And I think that 3 times the height is going to give you enough thread. So we're going to do 3. 1, grab it where you stopped, 2, and 3. And then you can snip that. And then you'll thread your needle. And then we're going to start sewing. So get that thread on there and you leave a little tail so that it's not going to slip out. And so I kind of shifted it, and so I'm just going to bring it back and find the hole where that matches this one, just to get it back lined up. Okay, to start sewing, you're going to start on the inside of the book, and you're going to go in one hole on the top edge. So I'm holding it in my left hand, my thumb's inside, and I'm going to start in this first hole at the top, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull and leave a tail. So I do want to leave enough to tie with. So I'm trying to leave like 2.5, 3 inches, and I'm kind of going to hold on to that for a second. I just caught it under my thumb here, and I'm going to go around the top of the book. I'm outside here on the spine, and I'm going to go around the top of the book and out the same hole. Okay, so just I'm making a loop around the top of the book. That's all I'm doing here. And I'm just trying to get it lined up kind of across the spine a little bit like that. Okay, and now I'm going to go around the top of the book again, and I want to try to make sure those threads don't cross over each other like that. That's what I don't want to do. I want to go straight like that, but I can always adjust it. So right now I came out the hole, so I went around one time, and now I'm going to go around again. But when I go around on the inside, I'm going to come out the second hole down. So I don't want to come out the same hole. I want to come out the second hole down. And here I'm just trying to make sure they don't cross each other, because it just doesn't look nice. So I want them to be parallel, straight to each other there. Camera doesn't want to focus because it can see all that background, but that's what's happening on the spine. And then inside, what it looks like is like that, because you can see that one thread coming down long here into the second hole down. Okay. And now we're going to start doing that little decorative stitch, the chain stitch. So now I can let go of that thread that's inside, because when I pull, it's not going to, because it's doubled up, it's not going to pull out. So now I'm out the second hole, and I'm going to take my needle and go under those 2 threads at the top, under those 2 threads, just on top of the paper, not into the hole or anything, just underneath the threads like that. So I'm just making a little loop, and then I'm going to go back in the same hole that I came out of. So right back into it like that. Okay. So now I'm inside, so I just went back in that hole, and this is my thread that I'm going to come back to in the end. That's just my tail. I'm not worrying about that. I'm just pushing it away. So I came back in the same hole, and now I'm going to go out the next hole down. So just third hole down, bring my needle out. And then I'm going to go under the threads above. Just make a little teardrop shape loop. You can see I'm off my spine here, but I'm going to just keep going. The first 3 holes I punched are not right on that spine, but oh well. And there's my 3rd stitch. So now I'm going to come out the 4th hole. So I'm just going out, under, around, and in. Out the next hole. Under the threads above, around, and down back in the same hole. And that's what I'm going to do all the way to the bottom of the book. Out this hole, around, and in. Out the next hole. Around and in. Out the next. Almost to the end here. I mean, my thread's getting pretty short. So I pulled 3 links. I might suggest 4 for you guys. I think I can handle this, but if you feel like you have a tendency to run out of thread, maybe do 3.5 or 4 times the height, because you'd rather have enough thread than not, than to run out. So you might want to do 4 times the height of the book. So around, one more time. And now I've got to do the finishing stitch here. So now what I'm going to do is I want it to match the other end. So I'm just going to do, so I'm at the last station. It's just the last stitches to make here. And this one's going to be a little bit different, only because I just want it to end the same way and not do that stitch. So I'm going to go in the hole instead of underneath how I was doing. I'm going to go in the hole. I'm going to go around one more time and through the hole. So I'm just making those finishing stitches kind of how I started at the top. And then inside, so you can see these 2 stitches are on just side by side here. And now I'm done sewing. So I've got this little bit of thread left, and I just want to tie a knot. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take my needle under the thread above, and I'm going to create like a little loop right here. I'm just trying to leave my thread on, only because it's easier to handle, but I could also take my needle off if I needed, and I will. Actually, I'm going to do that. So I just took my needle off. So I just took the thread underneath this thread above here, right here. And then I'm leaving a little loop, because what I'm going to do is take the tail of the needle, the cut end, and I'm going to take it through that loop and then pull it. And then I'm pulling the knot down towards the hole right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'll lift with my needle, take the thread underneath, and I'm going to go the other direction just because I can do it a little bit easier. take the thread underneath and leave a loop, and then take the tail of the thread through the loop like that, and then just pull that knot down. So I'm making like a little double knot. And then up here at the top, I'm going to do the same thing. So, but I have to just use my needle as like a little lifting device. And I'm going to take my thread underneath. There's like a long piece, because remember we came down to the second hole. There's a long thread there, and I'm going to lock that down by tying a knot. So I'm brought it underneath. I'm going to take it. I'm leaving a loop here,